Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah.
I became the Academy's blind swordsman. Description: a blindfold that is beyond reason, legendary. Experience gained increased by 500%. Weakness detection skill lv.MAX. Critical hit damage increased by 300%. Does not obstruct wearer's vision. The truth is, I can see everything clearly. Genre: action adventure fantasy harem romance school life. EP.1 blindfold that is beyond reason. For me, when good things follow, then misfortunes always come accordingly, as if sweet luck is not within my means. There was a special event in which a very rare item was given to only one person in my favorite game. Since it was a single game, not an online game with PvP elements, people also thought that there would be such an event. Of course, I applied too. I didn't want to win. There was an event, so I applied for it. However, I was the one winner, and I never thought it would lead to importation. lv.5. Current skills. Ghost Slayer technique lv.40n. In the game Dungeon and Fighter has a skill with the same name in the novel. Reference: https://www.youtube.com/watch. V equals XP UGFGNGHNW. Excellent sense lv.1. Weakness detection lv.MAX. Applying the effect of blindfold that is beyond reason. Items in use. Blindfold that is beyond reason, legendary. Low quality Eastern blade, normal. Even though it's a vivid reality, this familiar screen floating in the air, which is unrealistic, was enough to confuse me. At first, I thought it was really a dream, but it didn't take long to realize this was real. This world, which I was used to, was not a game or a dream, but a clear reality. The early skills taken in the character creation window became a force of my own, and a special item blindfold that I received before I was reincarnated became a precious item that could not be exchanged for anything, and a nickname that I made without thinking much, Zeto, has become my name in this fantasy world from now on. I'll wear a blindfold that covers my eyes, so I'll be blind, and if I'm a blind man, a sword is a must. A blind swordsman. How harmonious and cool. The two words were the concept of this character that I came up with roughly. When I touch my eyes to wake up to reality again, I can feel the thin cloth covering my eyes. Blindfold that is beyond reason. It's a legendary level item that is hard to see anywhere even now that the world in the game has become a reality. In terms of level, it was the best, the ultimate, and the most powerful that was placed at the end. On the outside, it was just an ordinary white bandage, but as the name blindfold suggests, it was the right way to wear it when you covered your eyes. The effect of this item, which was explained by the game company, had a fraudulent effect as it's a high-level item. Experience increase 500%. Weakness detection lv.MAX. Critical hit damage increase 300%. Even if you leave out one of these, it's a very good item effect, but, nevertheless, I'm still at a loss. The game was basically based on battle. In other words, from now on, instead of using a keyboard and mouse, I have to lead my body directly to avoid the pouring magic and arrows, confronted with a real sword fight. It wasn't easy for me, who had never been able to fight properly in my life. Fortunately, even with the blindfold covering my eyes, I can still see everything well. This also has the effect of the blindfold that is beyond reason. I looked up at the sky which was dazzling with sunlight. The sky was clear and blue. On the street, I could see people walking in the same outfit as me. There was nothing that I couldn't see. I could see through the blindfold without any blockage. It was a bizarre and incredibly fantasy thing. It's already the entrance ceremony. Zeto, I was busily walking from early morning. The last few days of being reincarnated are prologues for the game. Today is the entrance ceremony of the Innocence Academy, which was the main background of the game. Since it was a typical Academy game, the story in the game can be seen as starting today, when the entrance ceremony is held. Honestly, not entering an academy would also be a way to live in this world, but with the information I have from the game, in other words, as it was information inside the academy, I'd better use it within the academy. That's why, I thought that leaving the academy from the beginning wasn't a good option. In this medieval fantasy world, there is no place for a commoner without a surname like me to seek safe growth and success besides the academy. Oh, and by the way, it's further than I thought. I could ride a carriage to the academy with all my money, but I was afraid I was going to have to stop because carriage from outside cannot go further. Innocence Academy is an educational institution and a fairly large city. I knew that it was a closed disposition, but I didn't expect it to be this much. There wasn't much time before the entrance ceremony, so it was about the time when I hurried to move and pass the street corner. Thump. On the other side of the street corner, I bumped into something coming this way and fell. Gosh, you should watch where you... It was a woman with red hair. She raised her voice as if she was angry, but then suddenly cut herself off. I slowly caught her face in my eyes, blankly touching the floor. I could tell who she was at once from the way she looks because she is one of the main characters in the game. A finely braided red hair of the same color of dark blood, fiery red eyes as if they were flaming up. Yuri Clementine. Why did I have to bump into this woman, the glory of the Earl of Clementine, who rose to fame on the continent with her fire magic, the only heir to the Earl of Clementine, and was called the Flaming Flower because of her beautiful appearance, though she isn't really fond of that nickname. The most important thing in this situation is, Yuri is short-tempered. Basically, she gets angry easily. I'm sorry, I didn't concentrate. I scratched my head and spoke as low as I could. Nothing good will happen if I get in the way of Yuri here. As she was a major character, we're likely going to encounter a lot in the future. Oh, suddenly, Yuri is speechless. She was speechless for a while now. No, it's not your fault. I should have been careful, too. Yuri slowly took a deep breath and answered in a raised voice. Yuri Clementine apologized. It was a rare and unfamiliar image, but it's not that I don't understand. From Yuri's point of view, the blindfold was covering my eyes. That's right. Looking like this, everyone would think that I'm a blind man. A simple thing. If someone covers their eyes with a bandage, people will obviously think that the person can't see, and if not a blind man, there's no reason to walk through the street and get into this. I could see well, but from the perspective of others, certainly, I was blind. She must have wanted to pour out your anger as usual if her mood was bad, but if the opponent is blind, she would turn herself into a weirdo if she got mad. The Yuri I know was a fiery woman who was angry all the time, but at least she knew how to keep the line. I stopped lying on the floor and stood up, dusting off the dirt from the color of the tie. I guess you're entering the academy today, too. My name is Yuri Clementine. Yuri reached out her hand, but as she looked at my blindfold, she let out an "oh" and didn't know what to do. Because she was cute in a clumsy way, I couldn't help but smile. Ha, I already have a good feeling with just that much. My name is Zeto, so I reached out my hand and asked for a handshake. The touch of her hand, which I only watched on the monitor screen, was very soft. I can't believe that powerful flame magic pours out of this slender hand. Feeling, I can't see, but I can feel what's around me with other senses. If it's not that uncomfortable to move my body, it's no good to anyone to know that I can see clearly. If she knows that this ordinary blindfold that she saw was a special item, it could endanger my life by an unidentified assailant that I have sought for. It's a legendary item. The value may be so high that it would be latched to the villain's ears. Above all, knowing the effect of the blindfold, I have to keep this blindfold on, so I have no choice but to act blind. Even with a plausible excuse, Yuri let out an aha tilde as if she fully understood the explanation of the plausible made-up feeling. As she and I were both freshmen, we naturally walked together. You must be a swordsman. Yuri's eyes touched the sword in my waist. My skill is still lacking to call myself a swordsman. If you're a swordsman, then you mean the swordsman in the East, right? I nodded my head in affirmation of Yuri's words. Swordsman is a real job in the game. Isn't a blind swordsman better than a blind knight? The starting weapon, which was decided when making the character, was also deliberately chosen as the Eastern sword. As expected, you're the esteemed daughter of the Clementine family. You have a wide view of knowledge. Since I was young, I used to learn this and that annoying knowledge. This is nothing. Despite the obvious compliments, Yuri smiled softly as if she felt good inside. I don't think she was this funny when I played the game. Is she different in reality? The difference between game and reality. Things that were not possible in the game may become possible in reality. For example, Even if I could have improved my likability, it was in a game that did not lead to a relationship with the character, but if I were you now, I could date the person I wanted. The most important thing is, I don't know if I can save the dead character no matter what choice I choose in the game. It meant a lot to me. This is because I have also tried my best to save a certain character. After thinking for a while, I could feel the crowd around me. I think we're almost at the academy. Come to think of it, how did you find your way before you met me? I asked the people around me for directions or walked along the path that many people headed for. I assumed that people were walking around the city at this time, so there must also be many cadets. That's a pretty smart way. Somehow, the conversation seemed to continue to be an inquiry into the life of the blind, but Yuri had no choice because she was born with curiosity. As we walked along the road, the main building of the academy was finally revealed. The main building of Innocence Academy, where talented young people from all over the continent gather, was emitting a grandeur worthy of its reputation. The main story finally started. EP.2 Entrance Ceremony. As we entered the auditorium where the entrance ceremony was to be held, the eyes of the cadets who had already arrived there began to slowly gather at Yuri. Look, it's Yuri Clementine. So, Clementine is coming, too. Then, all 4 elementary families gathered for this admission. Her eyes are fierce. Well, she does look really pretty. First, it was because of Yuri Clementine, the esteemed daughter of a famous family. Who's next to her? It's my first time seeing him. Why is he covering his eyes? He must be blind. He's having a sword. Maybe he stabbed himself. Second, it was because of my unique visuals. I can hear a group of rude students looking and whispering about me. I'm not used to this reaction, but I'll have to get used to it from now on. It doesn't bother me much. It's not that I can't see. The fact that I don't know anyone's face is an extra which doesn't have much importance, but extras usually have just as much level as their level, so all the sarcasm didn't feel like a threat. I looked at Yuri, who was next to me, but her expression wasn't that good. Yuri's red eyes seemed to be burning up. Should I say that she's on the verge of bursting into anger? Maybe she didn't like how they were scoffing at me for being blind. There are always those kinds of people. However, as there aren't only cadets but also instructors here now, it wouldn't be a good sight to express anger. I restrained Yuri from approaching them. I'm fine, it's my business, so don't worry too much. Whether she felt my words or not, Yuri stared at me with her mouth tightly closed. Fortunately, her foul mouth didn't curse at them. When Yuri was getting more likable, even though she was a bit bitchy, she was still good at heart. It's just that she's short-tempered. She's a character who is closer to the good side. Yuri got angry more often at the beginning of the story. Of course, thanks to that, her aptitude, the flame magic power, was maximized. But one day she experienced inner growth, and through restrained anger, the flame got more powerful. I remember clearly how she pours out her magic, self-control. That's an important emotion in her awakening. If I help her little by little and she gets stronger a little faster, it will be a great help to the story ahead. There's no harm in awakening early. Perhaps we were a little late, since the students who followed us already stood in their seats. The lights in the auditorium gradually turned off and attention began to put on the platform, which was naturally the only one that shone. Welcome, cadets. My name is Juliet Klaus, the 21st principal of Innocence Academy. The speech began with the principal's dignified voice moving forward to the podium. I watched the first episode in the game without skipping. From the next episode, I skipped all these lines, so it's been a long time since I heard the speech, but it's still boring as before. The posture is uncomfortable, so it feels even more boring. I started looking around and checking out the main characters one by one. I could only see the back of their heads because I sat at the back, but they were still distinguished. There's that big guy who does earth magic. Familiar instructors also caught my eye. The composition of the characters was all the same, except for one. I can't see her. I looked back just in case, but I couldn't find her face in the back either. There's no way I can't see her since her hair color stands out. What's the matter? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Yuri, who was standing next to me, looked worried as I moved my head to look around. Oh, well, since I'm blind, she never thought I'd be finding someone. I'd better pay attention to these details in the future. No. It's nothing. Acting blind isn't easy either. There's a lot more to pay attention to than I thought. The more important thing right now, if she doesn't show up, what if she doesn't exist in this world? Apostrophe. This idea wouldn't be unreasonable considering her unusual character. She was a character who no one knew where and when she would appear, but she always showed her face at the entrance ceremony. This is weird, and congratulations once again on your admission, and now I'll explain the class assignment test. Before I knew it, most of the events of the entrance ceremony were coming to an end. I could feel the eyes of the students who were bored as the principal mentioned the test. The class assignment test will be held after a 3-day break for cadets who have gone on a long journey. Class assignment test has a long tradition and history in Innocence Academy. No status gap applies within the academy. The main influence was that the warrior who defeated the devil in the past was a commoner. Cadets can always have a difference between themselves, which is force or the strength of the cadet. In short, skills are everything in the academy, an educational system that encourages competition back to super-meritocracy. I didn't think much about it in the game, but there are parts that feel a little cruel when it comes to reality. What kind of test will it be this time? Yuri looked at the podium and asked a question with no answers. You said it changes every time, right? The contents of the test. I just played along. Of course, I know the contents of the test. Death matches in a virtual space created by illusionary magic divided into 10 people. Battle royale for 10 people. It doesn't matter, I can literally burn them all. Yuri casually uttered harsh words without any expressions. It's her character. She's just being weirdly gentle with me. When I looked at her without saying anything, she noticed my gaze and turned her head for no reason. My father told me that. Haha. You're such a passionate person. A brief awkward atmosphere between the two. Applause reverberates in the auditorium. The principal was leaving after saying his last greeting. You can tell from the name of the 4-element continental family. There are a total of 4 families, 4 elements of fire, water, wind, and earth. The 4-element family refers to a group of families who show off their more outstanding talents with elemental magic, which is so common that it is said to be representative. The Caligus family of earth magic, the Windless family of wind magic, the Aeon family of water magic, and the Clementine family of fire magic. The only daughter of Xerath Clementine, the current owner of the Clementine family. Her name is Yuri Clementine, Flaming Flower. Her nickname was made based on her beauty and the characteristics of the Clementine family since birth. Thanks to her unrivaled position and beauty, also as the only heir to the prestigious Clementine family, many engagements have been offered since childhood. The men approached only by looking at Yuri Clementine's face and body, or the value of the family's name, but it was unwelcome to her. Love. The love stories in the fairy tale told by the nannies in our childhood were sometimes heartbreaking and sometimes terribly sweet. Yuri Clementine longed for love in such fairy tales, but she realized at a young age that men who approach her don't come with love. It was from then on, Yuri Clementine became angry and showed off her talent for fire magic. She knew very well that if she gets angry like fire, men will leave without trying to approach her. Time went by, and she entered the academy. Gosh, watch where you go. She met a man who she couldn't get angry with for the first time. It was enough to upset her with the fact that he was in an uncomfortable state. Despite that, she bumped into him on the side of the road and knew she was at fault, that she lacked attention. I'm sorry, I couldn't concentrate. The man named Zeto, who was covering his eyes with a white bandage, was blind. No matter how much she couldn't get angry after bumping into a blind man. She thought it wasn't right. For the first time that day, she was able to have more than 5 words of conversation with an outsider other than her family. At first, it was curiosity. It was simply amazing to see him walking well without relying on a cane even though he couldn't see. It's a feeling, an ability to walk well alone and swing a sword even though he is blind. As expected, you're the esteemed daughter of the Clementine family. When he complimented her, it felt different from the compliments of other men she had heard. Perhaps, because it was a compliment on the knowledge gained from the history class that she hated. The important thing is that she didn't feel the same incident desires as other men. His smile was strangely clear and transparent. Yuri's conversation with him wasn't so bad. He didn't say anything that bothered her, and most of all, I'm fine, it's my business, so don't worry too much. Unlike herself, he was calm. He didn't get angry even though he was despised. Unlike herself, who has often been angry about nothing, Yuri Clementine suddenly realized, all men were uncomfortable, but she was feeling comfortable with him without realizing it. Zeto was blind. To Zeto, her beautiful appearance was useless. Beauty is worthless to him who can't see. Strangely, she could be so comfortable because he couldn't recognize her beauty at all. Thanks to you, I was able to come to the academy without much worry. No, it's nothing. Thanks to you, I wasn't bored on my way here. It was time to say goodbye to him. Yuri didn't want to say goodbye just yet. Is it because she feels comfortable talking with a guy after a long time? Meanwhile, Zeto talked to Yuri following her answer. It's meant to be, so let's get along well. Get along. Let's get along well. He meant as a friend. Since Yuri Clementine was young, she had no friends because she stayed away from boys and girls were busy jealous of her. A friend of the opposite sex when you don't even have a friend who's a girl of the same gender as her? But seeing Zeta reaching out with a pure smile, yeah, friends, there's no harm in having one. Okay, Yuri accidentally grabbed his hand. It was the first time in her life that she had a friend. EP.3 Ghost Slayer Technique. Today is the second day of the break. For 2 days, I concentrated on growing by mobilizing all the game knowledge I had. Thank you, young man. It's not a big deal. You can't even see anything, but it's amazing how you found our Chachu. The old man was petting a cat named Chachu which was in his arms. It was very easy for me to know where the cat was hiding. Of course, the cat was not as obedient as I thought, so I bought a fish from the fish store, but the result was good. It's just a small gift. It will be a success since we used reliable ingredients this time. This seemingly ordinary old man is an alchemist. To be exact, I think I should call him a crazy alchemist. He was a character who appeared only in the beginning and then disappeared, so no one knows his name or his real identity. Compensation was important to me anyway. When the old man accepted the potion, he waved at me and disappeared into a shaded alley. Did I finish all the side quests that can be easily solved in the beginning with this one? Organizing what to do wasn't that difficult. The quest with the right reward for the swordsman job was better, and it had to be easy enough to solve in a short time even though it was a quest from the early part of the game. Even though I skipped some, there were much more than I thought, so the sun was already leaving after finishing my work. This potion, called Unknown Potion in my hand now, actually has a tremendous effect of raising skill points. Gulp gulp. Without further delay, I inhaled the potion in a fit of anger. It tastes like trash. I didn't expect it to taste good because of the strange color, but I feel nauseous. But they say that good medicines taste bitter. I immediately checked the status window. Skill points have definitely risen. I used all the remaining points at this time. lv.10. Archived skill. Ghost Slayer Technique lv.8. Excellent Sense lv.3. Weakness Detection lv.MAX, applying the effect of Blindfold that is beyond reason. Items in use. Blindfold that is beyond reason, legendary. Low quality Eastern blade, normal. Energetic silver necklace, rare. I worked hard for 2 days, looking at the status window showing progress accordingly. I feel proud, since the rewards from the quests, which only gave experience, were activated well. My level rose by 5 levels, and thanks to that, I was able to raise my skill level a lot. The average level of cadets taking the class assignment test is about 6. Compared to that, I was already at level 10. The effect of the blindfold was also greatly applied to the experience gained increased by 500%. No matter what game it is, the difference between levels is obvious. People in this world didn't seem to know the existence of levels, but the difference must exist. Once the level rises, the amount of mana in your body increases. Mana can be seen as the basis of power in this world. The wizard had to be able to handle mana, much less a knight with a sword. This is because it was common to fight by strengthening the body or weapon through mana. I feel that the amount of mana that was flowing in my body has also increased significantly compared to the first day. At this rate, it may not be a dream to achieve the top score in the class assignment test. Well, I'm still overwhelmingly lacking in hands-on experience. For your information, my wallet has become thick as I solved the quests. I remember spending all my money a few days ago to ride in a carriage. I'm hungry. Should I buy a sandwich on my way to the dorm? Near here, there was a famous sandwich shop called Boar, which was made with meat from wild boar monsters. I think food is the most interesting part after coming to this world and to a place that I wouldn't have thought about. I was able to taste unusual food that was filled with the fantasy that I had only seen in the game, and the food was quite delicious. Of course, the academy dormitory also provides good quality meals, but for me, who has played the game for a long time, the delicacies in the city attracted more attention. Tonight's dinner is a special boar meat sandwich, the last day of the break. I got myself out of bed. The single room was assigned by the academy. This means that there was no need to fight any unfamiliar men. The interior of the room was very luxurious compared to the motel room I stayed in before coming to the academy. In my case, I'll be fine with everything as long as the bed is okay. The bed in the motel that I mentioned earlier was like they put millions of straws on it, and since I've been used to being a modern person, I didn't sleep well. The bed in the dorm? It was much better than the bed in my studio. I overslept on the first day thanks to it. Early in the morning, I washed up and finished preparing to go out. Today, I'm going to the training ground to test my skills. Passive skills have been applied well so far. Ghost Slayer technique helped me handle the sword skillfully and flamboyantly, and excellent sense provided me with a better response speed through my sharp sense. For weakness detection, which was obtained through my blindfold, I haven't experienced it yet, but I know what effect it had. The effect of weakness detection is simply increasing the probability of fatal blow. However, now that it's a reality, I still don't know how it will work. I haven't experienced any combat yet, so I guess I'll get to know more only if I get into a fight. When I arrived at the training ground, I warmed up lightly. Is he blind? He's even holding a sword. He must be a freshman, too. I got the attention from the cadets who came first, but as I wandered around for 2 days to complete the quests, these turned out to be a familiar reaction. I just have to mind my own business. Sling. I took out my sword slowly, the eastern blade that I was holding. It was better to cut than to stab. I immediately swung it with grace. Ghost Slayer technique. Originally, Ghost Slayer technique is a skill that can work only when the spirit of the dead, which is a devil, is contained in the sword. In this world, you can only shine when you use it with a spectral sword, which is a demon sword. Depending on whose soul the spectral sword contains, how strong the soul has, and how strong the soul was during its lifetime, the performance of Ghost Slayer technique varies widely. It's difficult to perform well from the beginning, but if the conditions are met, it can show high power. To do so, the first priority is to make a sword that can withstand a strong evil spirit, and it's essential to find a strong soul and seal it in the sword to make a spectral sword. An ingredient that is resistant to the evil spirit is needed to make a sword. Funds to entrust production to a skilled blacksmith. It wasn't something that could be solved in only a few days. There's no big problem with a powerful soul. It can be solved quickly with my game knowledge. There are some suitable candidates who know the location because they've already used the Ghost Slayer technique in games. As powerful as they are, it's not going to be as easy as the game. Although the Ghost Slayer technique wasn't showing its performance, it's still swordsmanship for now. Surely, the skill level has risen, so the sword itself moved faster and more flashy than before. I swung my sword further and stopped. I'm out of breath. I can even feel the hot drops of sweat flowing through my face clearly. It was because I pulled out mana as much as possible and wielded a sword with it in my whole body. How the hell did they train in this way? I might have slightly more mana than other cadets, but I still have a weak point compared to them. Dealing with mana, I'm weak at controlling my mana. I just let mana flow all over my body. It's almost impossible to use as much mana as I want in the desired area. There was no mana in modern times. Mana could never be used to this unfamiliar energy in my body. It was a much more alien sense than 3 more tails and arms that humans should not have. Even in the game, mana was just a basic stat bar, and the player omitted the process of dealing with it, because it's a game. But in this world, mana was so important. It was a worldview in which even the commoners who carried heavy loads could use mana to lift their luggage more easily. So I was just copying one of the key characters' training methods to get more familiar with mana. A very, very simple practice of wielding a sword with a mana all over my body until I'm exhausted. Having lost all my strength, I lay down on the side of the wall of the training ground. This time, neither the knowledge of the game nor the performance of fraudulent items could solve this problem. Around when the surroundings became dim and the buildings lit up one by one, I led my throbbing body out of the drill hall. Indeed, there was no significant effect in one day. My whole body was a disgrace. Bones creak and muscles struggle to rest. I still have some time before the test, but I was too greedy. I can't do anything more today. I should go back to the dormitory and take a deep rest. On my way back to the dormitory with a desperate walk. The appearance of the character approaching from the other side of the boulevard is familiar. There is a snort. As soon as I notice her presence, I didn't see her at the entrance ceremony, but it seems like it's not that she didn't enter the school. Not only is she the main character, but the girl I've been searching for since the entrance ceremony. A white coat over a uniform as her signature, her brilliant platinum blonde hair shines brilliantly with the bright moonlight as a light. As I slowly got close to her, it was a relief. If she hadn't existed in this world, things would have gone so much different. She was just that important to me. Perhaps a lot more than when she's in the game. Her golden eyes were so close now that I could see them with my own eyes. If this was the game and I was the player, I'd talk to her at this time, but I knew it might not happen. But she didn't walk past me and stopped right in front of me. I had no choice but to stop because of her who blocked me from the front. I was wondering if I should say something, but there's no way she would speak up and I could hear her voice. She was just watching me with her mouth shut, eyes that seem like a lot of thoughts are passing by. Her expression is complicated, and only indescribable emotions can be felt. May I help you? There was no answer. She ended up standing there for a long time, and then passed by, staring at me. What the hell just happened? I looked back at the ridiculous sight, but only the back of her walking silently past me can be seen. Her name is Azel Ludwig. I tried to save her by doing countless retries in the game. This game, I mean, the only regressor in this world. EP.4 Azel Ludwig. Azel Ludwig was a pretty unique character. The first line she utters when she meets a player is always the same. I've never seen this face before. It may not be a very special line. You're also a freshman. What are you talking about? It's bound to be such a reaction. Since then, she has been a character full of suspiciousness that disappears leisurely, leaving only unique lines. However, things change by the time the player gradually progresses to the fact that she's a regressor. The word first-time face means that the player has never appeared in her return, and the unusual words she uttered were hints about the future stories. This unique characteristic has come as an attractive element for users who play multiple episodes, and a guide for beginners, a slightly different line from the past. In fact, the story is slightly twisted after that. It was a powerful setup that led the player to play the next episode. I wasn't much different as a player either. In a way, I should say that I was attracted to her more, a regressor who tries to change the future through numerous regression. The player could be the only understander of such a regressor. The seductive relationship had a fascinating knack. I was such a fan of hers. Many players, not just me, would have been her fans. All of us were purely attracted to the character Azel Ludwig. But even though I've played so many times, nothing could prevent her death. In the middle of the story, Azel Ludwig dies in an episode related to the purpose and reason for her return. The player should also be considered a regressor. There was even a way to proceed with a new round, as the system's save and load could be reversed as much as possible. However, nothing could change the outcome of her death. Because of this, the game company was criticized a lot. We can't save Azel no matter what we do. You said we could do anything, motherfuckers. But why can't we save Azel? I know how she died, and I know why she died. I've prevented everything I can, but she's still dead. I don't think there's anything we can do about this. The person who made the game said that. So what more can we do? It should have been seen as a game with such a high degree of freedom within the academy, so these reactions should have leaked out. On the other hand, the game company took a silent attitude toward questions related to Azel. Someone agreed to that, someone denied, because Azel boasted unrivaled popularity in the game. There are many aftermaths in the process, quitting the game or making fun of Azel for being an incompetent returner. or not giving up foolishly and continuing to try and save Hazel. I was the latter. In fact, I couldn't let go of Hazel even before I entered this game. At some point, it was because I was proceeding to come halfway rather than because I like Hazel. At that point, it wasn't just persistence, but stubbornness. I thought there would be a clue now that the game has become a reality. Hazel, whom I had just encountered, passed me without saying anything. This has never happened in the game. Should I say that I'm not a player right now? In fact, I don't know much about Hazel from a non-player perspective. In the game, the strong fate force called system worked, so it was made to be related to her. I can't find an answer even if I try to work my brain. To be honest, she should be considered a more subtle person to be a returner to reality, not a set line like the game. I'll try everything I can. My desire to save her still hasn't changed. Not her death that I stared into the monitor screen. It's so painful to imagine seeing the warmth escaping from her body with my own eyes. I couldn't even say a word. It wasn't easy to see him again. I didn't commit a crime, but I hid in an alleyway as if I was running away from him. May I help you? I had to admit it. He is now a different person from the Zeto I remembered. The memories I shared with him no longer exist. He doesn't know me anymore. The uncomfortable and frightening truth rips through my head. This thing, I thought that I already got used to it. I guess not. He may have been secretly keeping away. To be deeply involved with people, that guy, Zeto, was special. He was the only variable that occurred in repeated regression. I was worried about him, but it seems like I wasn't the only one who minds. He approached me so comfortably. I once had a deep conversation with him. He had an understanding that I couldn't imagine. Maybe that understanding, I might have been craving it. He squeezed into my empty heart and inflated the size. Before I knew it, his existence, which grew as big as the void inside me, was a clear poison for me, a regressor. A drop of hot liquid flows down my cheek. His last moment still lingers in my head. His body, which was barely supporting himself against the broken wall, was bleeding heavily. The bandage around his eyes dropped helplessly, and his deep, wide sea-like blue eyes, which had been covered so far, shone softly. With a gentle smile that has continued from the first moment, he said while swallowing the surging blood, "Always, I was looking at the same place as you, Hazel, the sea that you liked. I hope we can go see it together next time." At the end of the sentence, he closed his eyes with a smile on his lips until the end. The world was silent as if to honor him. Even though she achieved her long-cherished goal with his help, she didn't want it to end. Where's the next one? There's always been a next for Hazel. He didn't have a next. To see the sea with him now, it doesn't mean much to him as a blind man, and he doesn't even remember. It was a selfish wish. It became my new purpose. I went back for him. With the repeated regression, I completely changed my behavior, which had been steadily organized. The previously reluctant method was good as long as it could achieve its purpose. Be strong with anything that comes. Use whatever I can. In this life, I will never repeat that experience again. Never, ever. Something happened that bothered me, but time didn't just wait for me. Time went by and it's already the day of the class assignment test. I was worried that I might be in bad shape. I wasn't in such a bad condition. It may have been helpful to eat and sleep after eating special salamander rice, which had a great effect on recovering physical strength. For your information, it didn't taste good. I thought it was rice with grilled eel. The class assignment test was already actively happening. All the freshmen, including me, were looking at a large screen located in front of the test site. The cadets who had finished the test or were waiting for the test were able to see through the transmission magic screen inside the space created by the illusion magic. What's that? Yuri, whom I don't know how she found me, was somehow standing next to me and relaying to me the progress. Thanks to her, I was struggling to pretend that I couldn't see the contents of the test, but I'm just grateful that it was an act that came from her good heart. It's pretty good. Is it that much? I don't want to admit it, but I think she already easily surpassed the cadet level. Then who is taking the test right now that Yuri is making such a fuss? The girl's white golden hair on the screen flutters in the wind. It was Hazel. I totally agree with Yuri. It doesn't make sense to emit that much power already. That's too strong, though. Hazel in the game, of course, topped her group, but she wasn't this overwhelming. Now Hazel smashed all 9 people, except herself, who would have been scattered on stage in about 3 minutes. The screen shows Hazel cutting off the last surviving cadet. With a creepy, emotionless face, she stood there as if she had finished everything she had to do. The image was clearly known to all the cadets watching it. Even if her class is different, she's so much further from others. The sudden magic she usually used remained the same, but other skills and abilities that couldn't be seen in the game were noticeable. She was extremely strong, even considering her special ability, regression. I can't keep up with what's going on. I managed to endure a sigh that was about to burst. After the long-awaited meeting with her, I feel like my headache won't go away. I will call out the next participant. Of course, I wasn't even given time to look at Hazel and think about it. Amancalagus. Zeto. My name can be heard quietly from the lips of the instructor who was conducting the test. Since then, the names of the remaining members have been called one after another. Okay, I'm going to take care of myself first. It's only after I become strong that I can think about how much I can influence others. Oh, and by the way, Amancalagus, from the 4-element family. It's the Calagus who's responsible for the earth. I used to run into him at meetings when I was a kid. But how can a big, distracted guy be so vicious? Even if he only took over half of his father, his personality is not very friendly. Yuri, who was next to me, snatched my murmur and frowned as if she was displeased. It happened to be a 4-element family during the class assignment test. Even in the game, this kind of start was not easy. Nothing is going well. EP.5 Class Assignment Test 1. Amancalagus. I know this guy as much as Yuri Clementine, a typical strong-weak character, corruption or reform. He has 2 roots with different roles. He was a character with a story close to a 3rd-grade villain when corrupted, but when he undergoes a self-change, he becomes a reliable colleague as a tanker with strong defense. Of course, his unique grumbling doesn't change even after he gets nicer. I don't think the opponent is easy, I said, fiddling with the sword around my waist. Of all things, I have to deal with the earth magic which has a high physical defense. We don't really match. If I were a wizard, you could twist your body and win. Well, Aman is simple, so he can easily fall for provocation, and he can be careless, so it's worth a try if you try to look for a chance. I'll have to do my best. Yuri also gave me advice as if she knew that we weren't a match. Monstero. 10 people who were called, step forward. After being called, I followed the instructor's words and stepped up. While walking, I can see a group of people who took the test earlier returning to their seats. Among them was Hazel. Except for Hazel, the other 9 seemed to be far away from her, as if she's scary. Good luck with your test. Hazel walked leisurely, whispering in a low voice that others cannot hear as she passed by me. I don't know why, but it seemed right that she was paying attention to me. One thing is certain, Hazel, who I've seen countless times in the game, is different from Hazel now. How much information in the game that I remember is right and how much is wrong? What has she been through to show this attitude? Thanks to Hazel's unpredictable move, my mind is confused, but I didn't stop moving. I had to step forward. Except for Hazel, it was still going as I expected. 10 cadets, including myself, stood in front of the instructor. After confirming our appearance, the instructor continued the same explanation as before. This test is a death match for people to decide who would kill and who would be killed in a space created by illusionary magic. As we saw earlier, dying in it does not actually kill you. As I was facing the instructor's stern eyes right in front of me, the tension began to creep up. Amon's giant figure standing next to me was enough to make me nervous, so don't be afraid and show the best you can. From the start of the examination, think of the others as an enemy to kill and not the same academy cadets. Use your ability to survive for a long time or destroy all your enemies. The instructors will keep an eye on all your actions and score points. That's it. After completing the important explanation, the instructor activated the magic circle that was prepared on the floor of the test site. Soon, the dimensional door opened on the floor and swallowed all 10 cadets, including me. Eventually, my consciousness, it started fading. As soon as I came to my senses, I stood up, and it was a place full of grass and trees. Is the topography a forest? As I looked up, countless stars were shining. The sound of grass bugs was heard around. and the fragrant smell of grass stimulated my nose. This is all fantasy stuff? The environment was so vivid that I got goosebumps. He must be an archmage at this point. This illusionary magic was none other than Juliet's ability, the principal of the academy. The cool wind blows and the hair flutters. I can't hear any loud noise yet. It seems that there's no battle yet. I think everyone must be awake at a similar time and make judgments about the situation. However, due to the tradition of the test, it's highly likely that it is not far away. I should go check somewhere else. In this situation, the person who moves first and finds the enemy first will have a better benefit. But, quickly pull out the sword and strike the flying object after me. Clash. An arrow of ice touches my sword and breaks into powder. That's the one I found first. It was an attack that was close to a raid without even hearing a sound, but thanks to my excellent sense skill, I was able to manage to respond. I checked the direction of the ice arrow. I can see a cadet with a surprised look on the tree that was there. Is that a wizard who mainly deals with freezing magic? The level didn't seem too high, so it was perfect for the first opponent. I was worried about meeting a man from the beginning. Jackpot. I still rushed at the brat who was preparing for the next spell without moving. The opponent was on a tall tree, about 3 stories high, but when I reached level 10, I was able to reach it with just one leap. Ice arrow. At the same time as I rushed at him, another ice arrow flew out, but I easily hit it, and the light leap after infusing mana into the body. This crazy. He was completely bewildered because I didn't think he would jump up this height at once. The moment I tried to cut down the guy standing on the branch with a stupid face in the air, there were several half-transparent red circles on his body. I instinctively cut down the waist where the biggest circle of the many red circles was. Crack, cough. Soon, a groan of pain is heard, and his body, which has been halved, quickly becomes ashes and disappears. There was no blood spatter. It was the influence of illusionary magic. The red circles I saw just now, is it the effect of the weakness detection skill? I need to find out more. Battle is more enjoyable than I thought. That's because I thought my knowledge and efforts were not wasted. I was smiling faintly in the dark forest with a sword in my hand. Crush, lower my posture and rush at great speed to cut down the enemy in front of me. The opponent, who couldn't even scream and split in half, became ash and was blown away by the wind. The opponent who just collapsed used a two-handed sword. I wanted to see how far I could reach with my Ghost Slayer technique without the spectral sword, but this excessive mana operation ended most of the battles as quickly as possible because I thought my body wouldn't hold out until the end of the test. This is the 4th person. After several battles, I was able to understand more about weakness detection skills. As I guessed, the red circle meant the opponent's weak point. Any solid object was cut as smoothly as if cutting tofu when the red circle passed by. The important thing is, weak point was not limited to the opponent's body or weapon. The effect of the maximum skill level for weakness detection was not to that extent. Magic has its weak point, too. I could find a clue to Ammon's relative lore here. Fortunately, I realized this without meeting Ammon. I didn't know why magic also made red circles. It wasn't a skill that worked with this principle in the game, simply because the skill level is at its maximum, or is it influenced by the blindfold? As it's a legend grade item, there may be more hidden effects. High grade items often have such things. The fact that I can see ahead right now should have been seen as a hidden effect of the blindfold. Of course, I might sound greedy to hope for more effect here. As I was thinking about taking a break, I can feel a movement behind me, hearing footsteps. This person must be quite big. What are you? I could hear him speak up as he saw me. Speak of the devil. I turned back and looked at him. What do you want? Are you an idiot? Can't you see anything? The guy who had a rude mouth, Amon Caligus, a giant body that seems around 2 meters tall. On his arms, a huge gantry of rock stands out. Ammon's basic attack is a hit using a gauntlet created by earth magic called Earth Gauntlet. Depending on the situation, earth magic such as rock face or stone shower may be used. Earth magic with great physical defense. On the other hand, there was no magic damage to my attack. He put nasty grin while looking at the sword in my hand, but likewise, I couldn't lose my smile after I checked his figure. The red circle was clearly visible from his gauntlet, either falling down or becoming a new man. It'll be better to act nicely, right? I slowly approached him one step at a time. The teachers gathered to watch the class assignment test. Most of the instructors were focusing on the transmission screen. The grading was also done, but the atmosphere of the test was ripe as there were many fun things happening from the instructor's point of view. They finally met. Caligus, 4, Zeto, 4. Now that there are only 2 left, is the winner of this fight the first place? Caligus' performance from the point of view of the instructors was a category within expectation. The leader, who gathered all 4 element families, thought the results would be obvious in a way. However, the appearance of unstandard genius Azel made instructors excited. Then came a cadet named Zeto. He wasn't from a famous family, nor was he famous on the continent by showing off his skills early. New face. He wasn't the only one who caught the eye of the instructors. That Zeto kid, where did he come from? I don't know where he's from. Besides, there's not much in the document. He doesn't have a lot of information. How did he get into school, with dark black hair, and looking at that sword that he's using? I think he's from the East. At this time, an interesting answer from an instructor who was well versed in swordsmanship follows. The East, come to think of it, I happened to drop by the East. I heard that they purposely block the view and train when teaching swordsmanship. What? So you're saying Zeto's not blind? I don't think so. They also do that for a better sense. I was told that there was no hands-on experience. Even if they don't know about other things, they must agree with his words about swordsmanship. Instructors didn't readily acknowledge the existence of Zeto. Then, at that young age, that blind kid can dispel magic with his sword. Raina, that was obviously a coincidence. You've got it wrong. How can you dispel with a sword? Dispel? The act of interfering with the magic on display and destroying it structurally. Originally, dispel was supposed to be another kind of magic that invalidated the opponent's magic. Zeto had previously dispelled magic with a sword when dealing with a cadet who uses magic, but the instructors all thought it was a coincidence, except for Raina, who was confident in dispel. Oh, my god, fuck, what is this? As the instructors were having a conversation, someone suddenly cursed out of the transmission screen. The main character of that swearing was none other than Eman, who was fighting Zeto. The gauntlet is gone. The instructor's mouth, who was denying Raina's opinion just now, was wide open. As it was a gathering of instructors who had experienced many battles, they had no choice but to admit it this time. It wasn't physically that the gauntlet was broken. The gauntlet disappeared as soon as it touched the sword. It's gone. Eman's Earth Gauntlet. Eman's Earth Magic. It was clear that Zeto's sword dug into the structural part of the Earth Gauntlet and dispatched it. Raina looked at the instructor whose mouth was open and shouted, I told you that brat is weird. He broke the spell with a sword.